It started with a missing watermelon. Just an ordinary Saturday morning and a garden gone wrong. But when the security footage revealed who took it, I knew things were about to spiral. Let's just say she stole the wrong fruit. Where are you watching from? Hopefully somewhere safer than my neighborhood. Drop it in the comments. And if you like suburban drama, hit that subscribe button before Karen reports you to the HOA. Karen, self-appointed yard inspector, neighborhood tyrant with a clipboard and a god complex. She'd done a lot over the years, petty fines, fake complaints, power-tripping nonsense. But this was different. She crossed a line. And in that moment, I didn't scream, I didn't rage. I smiled, because I knew exactly what I was going to do. She wanted a watermelon? Fine. I was going to give her one. But it was going to be filled with fire. And she was going to remember every bite. Reusable shopping bag in one hand. She tried to shove the watermelon inside like it was a loaf of bread. Didn't fit. So she just cradled it like a baby. Then turned and waddled away. I watched, jaw hanging open, as she struggled to climb back over the little stone border I'd built around my garden. Nearly slipped twice. The watermelon wobbled in her arms like a bowling ball on a skateboard. But she made it. The motion light clicked off, and just like that, she was gone. Vanished into the darkness with my watermelon like it was some kind of coupon for free yoga classes. I paused the footage, rewound it. Watched the whole ridiculous scene again just to be sure. Same bathrobe, same slippers, same smug little strut, same ending. I sat back in my chair, stunned, my hands curled into fists. This wasn't petty. This wasn't funny. This was war. Karen, the HOA tyrant, queen of yard violations, self-appointed ruler of the neighborhood, had finally gone too far. She crossed the line, and she didn't even blink. She thought she could take what was mine and just laugh it off. She didn't know me. She didn't know how far I'd go for payback. But she was about to find out, because I wasn't just going to get even. I was going to serve her a slice of justice so hot, she'd be tasting regret for the rest of the month. I didn't even knock. I pounded on her door like the house was on fire. Each hit echoed off those faux stone columns she bragged about last HOA meeting. The ones she said added curb appeal, like anyone asked. I stepped back, heart pounding. The image of her waddling away with my watermelon still burned into my mind like a brand. Finally, the door creaked open. There she was. Karen. Blonde bun pulled tighter than a drum. That pinched little expression she always wore, like smelling something unpleasant was just her natural state. She blinked slowly, like I was some unwelcome salesman interrupting her dreams of neighborhood domination. Then she smiled, that smug, sugary smile. "Oh, it's you." I held up my phone, thumb hovering over the play button. "Where's my watermelon?" Her eyes flicked to the screen for a split second. Then, without missing a beat, "Watermelon? What watermelon?" I clenched my jaw. "The one you took from my yard last night. 2:07 a.m. I've got it on camera, Karen." She scoffed, crossed her arms. "Oh, that watermelon. Please, I didn't steal it. It was just sitting there, all alone, unattended, practically abandoned." She smirked. "I rescued it." I blinked. "Rescued?" I said, trying not to laugh. "You climbed into my yard like a raccoon in a bathrobe." She rolled her eyes and waved her hand, like she was swatting away a bad smell. "Tomato, tomato. Maybe don't leave things lying around if you don't want them enjoyed." I just stared at her. She wasn't even pretending anymore. She was justifying it. "I want it back," I said, still holding my phone, though the video wasn't doing half as much as the fire bubbling in my chest. Karen didn't blink. "Well, that's awkward," she said, smiling like she was on a cooking show. "I already cut it up. Watermelon salad, organic feta, mint leaves. It was divine. Thanks for the ingredients." I stood there, speechless. She wasn't just smug. She was proud. Like this was her victory lap, like she thought the story ended here. I took a breath, deep and slow. "You know what, Karen? Enjoy it." Her eyebrow arched. She was thrown off by my tone. "Really?" "Yeah," I said, forcing a smile so tight it hurt my jaw. "Glad you liked it." Then I turned and walked away. Jaw tight, heart pounding, the rage right under the surface, bubbling, because I had a plan now. She thought she'd stolen something sweet, but she had no idea what I was about to serve. I stood in my kitchen that night, staring at a fresh watermelon sitting on the counter. It looked harmless. But this wasn't food. It was a weapon, a juicy, glorious Trojan horse filled with something so hot it could make grown men cry. Karen wanted to play dirty? Fine. I'd meet her there and burn the whole board behind her. I opened my laptop and started searching. Not Tabasco, not ghost pepper. I needed something meaner. The kind of sauce people warn each other about on message boards. The kind that comes in a bottle with hazard tape and a label that says, "Not responsible for injury." The kind of stuff they store in glass vials like it's weaponized lava. And I found it. Carolina Reaper extract, 2 million Scoville units of liquid regret. Exactly what Karen deserved. That's when I found it. Carolina Reaper extract. Over 2 million Scoville units. A single drop could ruin your day. A teaspoon? You're weak. One reviewer said it made him question the existence of joy. Perfect. I ordered a bottle with expedited shipping. It arrived 2 days later in a package that looked like it belonged in a bunker. Black tape, hazard labels. Even the delivery guy handed it to me, like it might bite. "Whatever this is," his eyes said, "I hope it's not for me." Back in my kitchen, I set up my workstation like a mad scientist prepping for controlled chaos. Gloves, goggles, face mask. I wasn't taking any chances. The warning label said it could blister skin on contact. I believed it. I drew the sauce into a syringe, one slow pull at a time. The liquid inside glowed red, thick, fiery, evil, like something harvested from the core of a volcano. Then I turned to the watermelon. It sat there, innocent, ripe, software. It almost felt wrong, violating a fruit this way, but justice has a price. And Karen? She was going to pay it in sweat and in tears. I injected the hot sauce in 12 spots, carefully, deep under the flesh. Spread it evenly to make sure every bite was just as brutal as the last. I sealed each hole with food-safe wax and rubbed a little dirt on the rind to make it look freshly picked. By the end, it was flawless. It looked just like the one Karen had stolen, except this one fought back. I stepped back, arms crossed, and admired my work. The world's most dangerous watermelon, a fruit with a fuse. Now, all I had to do was deliver it. I already knew where. Every Saturday, the neighbors set out their extra produce at the end of Willow Street. Tomatoes, zucchinis, cucumbers no one could finish, free for the taking. And Karen? She treated it like her personal buffet. She never brought anything, but she always took the best stuff. Perfect. Let her take this one. Let her slice it. Let her serve it to her little brunch squad with their wine spritzers and cucumber sandwiches. And then, let the fire begin. The sauce had seeped in overnight, mingled with the fruit's juices, hidden perfectly beneath layers of sweet red innocence. One bite, and it would hit like a freight train. I carried it to the neighborhood produce table, set it right in the middle, center stage, like a prize at a fair. Then I added a handwritten tag, friendly, simple, fresh, enjoy. I smiled. Let it look like a gift. Let it look harmless. Then I backed off, slipped behind a neighbor's hedge, my camera already rolling. Didn't take long, 10 minutes, maybe less. And then, like clockwork, she appeared. Karen, giant sunglasses, wide-brimmed hat, walking like she was in Tuscany, not prowling a suburban sidewalk. Her rhinestone tote bag hung off her arm like a badge of entitlement. I watched her scan the table, her eyes locked on the watermelon. Bingo. She tilted her head, stepped forward, tapped the rind with her fake nails like she knew what she was listening for. Then, a quick glance left, a glance right. No witnesses. Classic Karen. She grabbed the watermelon, grunted, nearly dropped it. But she got it into the bag. Barely. She hobbled away with it like she'd grown it herself, like she'd earned it. I followed at a distance, quiet, low, camera still rolling. She waddled all the way down the sidewalk, across the cul-de-sac, right up her front steps, disappeared inside like a soap opera villain, closing a dramatic scene. And just like that, the watermelon was in enemy territory. My trap set. All I had to do now was wait, because tomorrow was Sunday, brunch day, and Karen, being Karen, wouldn't resist the chance to show off. She'd slice into that fresh, organic watermelon with pride in her eyes. She'd serve it to her friends, smug, confident, in control. And then the fire would hit. She thought she'd stolen from me again. Good, because what she took this time was a fireball in disguise, and the whole neighborhood was about to feel the heat. Sunday morning arrived with that eerie kind of peace, the kind of stillness that hangs in the air right before something blows up. Birds chirped, sprinklers hissed. Somewhere down the block, a wind chime whispered in the breeze. But I wasn't listening, I was watching. Binoculars in hand, not because I'm a creep, but because karma deserves a front row seat. I locked in on Karen's backyard. She was setting up for what could only be described as an HOA certified brunch. White tablecloth, matching folding chairs, one of those flimsy canopies that looks like it's going to take off in a strong sneeze. She even had her fancy daisy-shaped serving platter. And right there, smack in the middle of it all, was the watermelon, my watermelon, or at least the one she thought was innocent. She'd sliced it into perfect little wedges, arranged them like trophies. Her guests were already arriving, the usual suspects. Barbara, who once reported me for excessively creative Halloween decorations, and the guy who calls the cops if your trash cans stay out for more than 5 minutes. Karen raised her mimosa to fresh starts. And clean lawns, she announced, like she was blessing the block. Everyone smiled, everyone clapped, and then she took a bite. At first, nothing. She smiled, chewed slowly, all smug and proud of herself. Then her face changed. It froze, her eyes twitched, lips parted, then pressed together like she was trying to trap a scream inside her own mouth. She blinked. Once, twice, then she screamed. It wasn't just a yelp. It was a full-body, banshee-level shriek that shattered the peaceful brunch vibe like a wrecking ball through a greenhouse. She dropped the watermelon slice like it had turned to acid mid-chew. Her chair toppled backward. Her mimosa, gone, launched into the grass. Her guests, confused, stared. Then they picked up their own slices. And then, pandemonium. Barbara took one bite and immediately spit it across the table. Her eyes went wide, watering like she'd just watched a soap opera in reverse. Another woman shoved her chair back and sprinted toward the garden hose, clawing at her mouth like she'd just eaten a branding iron. And one guy, I kid you not, dove headfirst into the kiddie pool, fully clothed, flailing, chugging water like he was mid-exorcism. Meanwhile, Karen was in full meltdown mode, mascara running, eyes bulging, tears streaming. She looked like a Disney villain mid-final scene. She grabbed a pitcher of lemonade, big mistake, and dumped it over her head. Carolina Reaper plus lemon juice? That's acid on acid, she gasped, screeched, spun in frantic circles, hands clawing at the sky. Somewhere in the chaos, I heard a voice yell, "What kind of fruit is this?" I had to bite my knuckle just to stay silent. This wasn't a prank anymore. This was poetry. Karen had stolen a watermelon, and I had just served her a brunch she would never forget. The backyard looked like a food fight in the middle of a hurricane. Her perfect white tablecloth was crumpled in the mud, chairs toppled, napkins scattered like surrender flags. Guests, fanning themselves with flimsy paper plates, crouched near flower beds, trying to breathe through the burn. But Karen was done. She was barefoot, stomping through the yard like a banshee, her face redder than a stop sign. In one hand, she waved a half-empty milk carton like it was a magic wand that had lost all its power. Her hair, usually shellacked into a helmet, had collapsed into a tangled, sweaty mess. Her blouse was soaked in what I could only guess was a mix of watermelon juice, milk, and tears. Through my binoculars, I watched her scream something at Barbara, who was doubled over near the hydrangeas. "My lips are burning," Barbara cried. "My soul is burning." Another guest, the guy who always whines about bike wheels on sidewalks, was slumped against a tree, fanning himself with a gardening magazine. Karen ran toward the hose, yanked it so hard the nozzle snapped clean off. Water exploded like a fire hydrant, soaking half the brunch table. Someone screamed. Someone else clapped. And me? I was filming. My camera, perfectly placed in the upstairs window, caught every second, every shriek, every spit take, every frantic dash to the kiddie pool. It looked like a backyard disaster movie, only better. Because this time, the villain was also the victim. Karen finally collapsed into one of the few chairs still standing, gulping milk straight from the carton, gagging, gasping, like she was auditioning for a survival show nobody asked for. Her eyes scanned the chaos around her, plates in the bushes, brunch guests on the ground, one guy sobbing into a garden gnome. And for the first time, she didn't look smug, she looked shaken, not just from the heat, but from the realization that her little kingdom, her precious backyard empire, had just burned to the ground, and she hadn't seen it coming. Then, slowly, her head turned, right toward my house. I ducked, heart pounding. But I'd seen the look. Fury, humiliation, suspicion. Karen wasn't dumb. Somewhere in that spicy, milk-soaked soul of hers, she knew. This wasn't an accident. Someone had done this, and her radar was locked on me. I stayed low, covered my mouth to keep from laughing. Not yet. Not until I backed up the footage. Outside, I heard the slow creak of a chair, the sound of her standing, staggering. The queen of the HOA had fallen, and I had every glorious second in full, high-definition detail. Justice had never looked so delicious. Then, a new sound. The doorbell. Not just a normal ring. It screamed over and over, like the button itself was under attack. Karen wasn't knocking. She was slamming that thing like she thought she could erase reality with enough pressure. I took a deep breath, straightened my shirt, and opened the door slowly, calm as could be. And there she was, Karen, standing on my porch, soaked, red-faced, her blouse clinging to her like shame in cotton form. No sunglasses now, just bloodshot eyes full of rage. Her nostrils flared, her fingers twitched around her phone like it was a trigger. She smelled like desperation and lemon-scented regret. "You," she hissed. Her voice, hoarse, cracked, like she'd gargled lava and chased it with broken glass. "You did this?" I blinked, played dumb. Did what? Her arm flew up, phone in hand, waving it like she was about to summon a fire demon. "The watermelon!" she screeched. "You poisoned it! My guests were screaming. I almost died." "Poisoned?" I repeated, tilting my head. "That's a bold accusation, Karen, especially considering you stole it." Her mouth opened, then closed, then opened again, but nothing came out. I pulled my phone from my pocket, a few quick taps, and there it was. The footage. 2:07 a.m. Robe, slippers, flashlight, guilty as sin. I turned the screen toward her. She froze. She stared at herself, caught red-handed, creeping into my yard, arms cradling the watermelon like it was treasure from a grocery store heist. Her face twisted, real-time guilt, syncing perfectly with the playback. I was rescuing it," she said, voice suddenly small. "You left it out. It was unattended." I cut her off. "On my property, in my garden, right next to my tomatoes." She flinched, just a little. But still she pushed back. Her finger came up shaky, but pointed. "That's not the point. You booby-trapped it. That's illegal." I kept my voice calm. "Nope." I folded my arms. I placed a watermelon at the community produce table, free for anyone. I didn't force anyone to take it. You helped yourself. I let that sink in. Again, Karen's lips twitched, somewhere between a snarl and a nervous tick. Her eyes darted around like she was looking for a loophole hiding in my shrubs. I should call the police, she snapped. I smiled, not smug, just patient. Please do. I held up my phone and tapped the screen again, rewinding to the exact moment she stepped over my garden border. Show them this, trespassing, theft, and if you keep lying, we can talk about perjury too. She stared at me, silent, but I could see it. The rage, the humiliation, the bitter realization that she had nothing. She had lost. And so, she did what Karens do when the throne crumbles. She huffed, spun around, and stormed off down my walkway, dripping, defeated, and still radiating the scent of sweat, citrus, and consequence. No apology, no dignity, just the sound of flip-flops slapping the pavement like a slow, sad drum roll of shame. And me? I just leaned there in the doorway, phone in hand, smiling. Because I knew something she didn't. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. But now, I had her exactly where I wanted her. 2 full days of silence followed. No texts in the HOA group chat. No notes taped to my trash bins. No angry glares from behind her lace curtains. Nothing. It was too quiet, not peaceful, tense. Like that weird stillness after a storm, when you know another one's forming just off the coast. Then came Wednesday morning. I opened my front door and saw it. A box, unmarked, no shipping label, just sitting there on my doormat like a gift no one asked for. Inside, a watermelon, another one, this time with a note taped right to the rind, big, loopy cursive that screamed fake politeness. Hope you enjoy a normal watermelon for once. Maybe try being a grown-up next time. Oh, Karen. She really thought this was clever. Her big comeback. Her sad little gotcha. I picked it up and immediately knew something was wrong. Didn't even have to slice it. The smell hit me like a brick wall, dipped in salad dressing, vinegar, sharp, sour, overpowering. The kind of scent that burns your nose and ruins your whole morning. I laughed out loud. Because she had actually done it. She tried to flip the script. She had taken a page out of my book and scribbled all over it in crayon. She probably stood in her kitchen, muttering to herself about respect and decorum while loading a syringe full of vinegar into the nearest produce item she could find. It was pathetic, like trying to throw a water balloon at a guy holding a fire hose. Still, I had to be sure. I sliced it open just in case. Juice poured out like the fruit was sobbing. I dipped a spoon in, took one cautious sniff. Yep, acidic misery. Pure, bitter, watery defeat. Inedible, unoriginal, and honestly, kind of sad. Nice try, Karen. But if that was your idea of revenge, you were already losing the sequel. I set the melon on the counter, grabbed my phone, and did what any reasonable, mildly vengeful neighbor would do. I filmed it. "Hey, neighbors," I said, cheerful as ever, holding up the note like it was evidence in a courtroom. Looks like Karen sent me a little peace offering, or maybe a prank, hard to tell. I sliced into the watermelon with flair, let the vinegary juice ooze onto the cutting board like the fruit itself had just given up on life. Spoon in hand, I dipped into the puddle, sniffed it, and made the most dramatic gagging face I could muster. "I don't know what kind of salad dressing she was going for," I said, grinning, "but I don't think this one's going viral." I ended the recording, didn't post it publicly, didn't need to. I sent it straight to Karen. No caption, no context. Just the footage. Her prank, exposed in glorious high-definition failure. 20 minutes later, she replied. One message. "You're pathetic." I smiled. Set my phone down like I'd just won a trophy. Because in the world of neighborhood warfare, that kind of reply is the same as waving a white flag. But I knew Karen wasn't done. She couldn't be. Not after getting burned, literally and very publicly. But still, I didn't expect her next move to be so desperate. That night, my phone buzzed with a notification. Neighborhood group chat. I usually avoided it. It was mostly lost cat alerts and grown adults arguing about garbage bins. But this time, it was a novel from Karen. "Hello, neighbors," it began, like she was addressing a town hall instead of a dozen tired homeowners. "I'm deeply saddened to inform you that I was recently the victim of a malicious act. Someone in our community thought it would be funny to tamper with food, which resulted in a serious health scare at my private brunch." I nearly choked on my drink. It went on. "I will not name names at this time, but I believe we all know who would stoop to such behavior. This individual has also targeted me with harassment, doctored videos, and slanderous accusations. I've contacted the HOA board and will be calling an emergency community safety meeting this weekend. Attendance is highly encouraged." Highly encouraged. Translation: "Show up, or I'll fine you for the color of your mailbox." I scrolled through the comments. Most people were just confused. A few offered vague support, and the kind that sounds more like "I don't want to be involved" than actual backup. But one reply stood out. "Rodriguez, my favorite neighbor," just a popcorn emoji, and "This should be fun." I smirked, because he got it. Karen was trying to flip the narrative. She wanted to be the victim now, the poor, misunderstood brunch hostess who was just trying to bring people together and got attacked with watermelon? It would have been hilarious if it wasn't so painfully on brand. But the part that really got me, the part that made me laugh out loud, she mentioned a doctored video, a video I hadn't even posted yet. I sat back in my chair, reread her message, and felt it, that spark, the one that meant something was about to go down. Karen thought she was playing chess, making her big move, getting ahead of the story. She wanted to shame me in front of the neighborhood, turn the HOA into her personal courtroom. She probably pictured me apologizing at the community meeting, tail between my legs, while she handed out color-coded agendas with her name printed in 18-point font. And maybe, just maybe, she thought I'd be scared of her title, her little clipboard, her power. What she didn't know? I had the real power, because I had the footage. I smiled, opened my laptop, pulled up the file. Karen's brunch meltdown, full HD, uncut, her face, her scream. The lemonade shower, the guest diving into the kiddie pool like he was being chased by demons. I dragged the file into the upload box, paused for a second, then typed, title, HOA Karen stole my watermelon. So I gave her a spicy surprise. Description: she thought she could steal from me and get away with it. Spoiler: she couldn't. And then I hit upload. The screen blinked, the progress bar filled, and just like that, the fuse was lit. At first it was just a trickle, a few likes, a couple of comments, nothing big. But within 30 minutes, it started to climb. Hundreds of views turned to thousands. And the comments, they exploded. Laughing emojis, fire icons, the occasional "justice has been served." I couldn't stop refreshing. It was like watching karma unfold in real time. And I had the best seat in the house. "Is this real?" She was screaming. The lady with the lemonade shower sent me. One user even time-stamped every scream and ranked them. But the best part? Someone slowed down the footage of Karen dumping lemonade over her head and added dramatic opera music. I watched that on loop at least 10 times. Meanwhile, my phone? Going nuts. Buzzing nonstop. Friends, co-workers, neighbors I hadn't talked to in years. "Dude, Karen? Please tell me that's your yard? This is better than Netflix." By morning, it had hit the local subreddit, 2 meme pages, and somehow a spicy food challenge group. One user messaged me asking what hot sauce I used. Another said they wanted to nominate Karen for Karen of the Year. And then, right on cue, my phone buzzed again. Karen, take the video down." Now I stared at the message for a second, smiled, then typed back, "Me. You mean the video of you stealing from me and losing your mind because you got caught?" A pause. Then, "Karen, this is defamation. I will sue you." I laughed out loud. Me. "Karen, it's literally just footage. You stole a watermelon, then you melted like a candle in July. That's not defamation, that's documentary filmmaking." And then, silence. No response. Because for once in her life, Karen had nothing left to say. And that's when I knew it hit her. The truth wasn't going anywhere. The internet had seen it. The neighborhood had seen it. Her brunch guests definitely saw it. And now total strangers were watching her dump lemonade on herself in slow motion, set to dramatic violin music. It was beautiful. I leaned back in my chair, exhaled. Karen had tried to humiliate me in front of the HOA. Instead, she became the main character in a story she couldn't delete. And the best part? I hadn't even shown up to the community meeting yet. The next morning, I woke up to another Karen manifesto in the group chat. This one? Longer. Somehow, even more dramatic. "Good morning, neighbors," it began, like she was addressing a royal court instead of 12 annoyed homeowners with mismatched fences. "I know many of you have seen a video circulating online. I want to clarify a few things and share the truth." I sipped my coffee, settled in, because I knew this was going to be good. What happened at my brunch was not a joke. It was a targeted attack meant to humiliate me and my guests. I have lived in this neighborhood for 10 years, and I've worked tirelessly to maintain our standards and protect our property values. Standards. Karen speak for make everyone miserable. She continued, "Unfortunately, a small group of toxic individuals have taken it upon themselves to tear down everything we've built. They've resorted to online bullying, edited videos, and public harassment." Edited? "Ma'am, the only thing I edited was trimming the silence between your scream and the lemonade toss for pacing. You're welcome. I urge all of you not to fall for this hateful campaign. We must stand together against this kind of behavior. I'll be hosting a gathering next week to talk about how we can restore peace and dignity to our community." Peace and dignity. From the woman who once yelled at a kid for riding a scooter too close to her driveway. Sure. I scrolled through the replies. Some were supportive, people who either hadn't seen the video or were too scared to cross her. But more than a few weren't buying it, and the tide was about to turn. Rodriguez replied first. "Was the lemonade part scripted too? Because that was Emmy-worthy." Someone else followed. "You literally stole a watermelon, Karen. It's on camera." And then the screenshots started pouring in. People were done. They weren't just mocking her anymore. They were testifying, posting their own Karen stories. Times she fined them for things that didn't even exist. Times she measured their grass with a ruler. Times she warned them about unsanitary mailbox paint. It wasn't a toxic few. It was half the neighborhood. Karen tried to keep control. She replied over and over. Her messages got shorter, then angrier. Then came the caps lock. "I demand respect. You are violating community guidelines. The HOA board will be notified." Classic Karen panic mode. But it was too late. The spell was broken. She wasn't the queen of the cul-de-sac anymore. She was just the woman who stole a watermelon, ruined her own brunch, and got roasted across the internet in 4 different meme formats. No amount of flowery language, no community meetings, was going to undo that. She'd started this whole story thinking she'd come out on top. But now, her audience was turning the page, and they weren't reading it her way anymore. By that afternoon, the group chat had completely transformed. What used to be Karen's personal stage now felt more like group therapy. And people were ready to talk. It started with Mrs. Langley, 2 houses down. She posted a photo of her lavender bushes. Caption, "Got fined $100 because Karen said they attracted too many bees." The chat blew up. People had questions. People had stories. Mr. Patel chimed in next. She threatened to report me for having a non-compliant front doormat. It literally said, "Welcome." Then Sarah, the new mom on the corner lot. Karen called the HOA because I had a baby stroller on my porch, said it made the block look cluttered. It was like someone had unscrewed the lid on a pressure cooker. Years of frustration, petty fines, fake rules, quiet resentment. Now, it was out. Karen wasn't just a neighbor. She was the reason half of us checked our yards for citations before we even poured coffee. Rodriguez posted again, this time a selfie, standing next to his garden gnome, the one Karen had declared a decorative hazard. Caption, "Still standing, still illegal apparently." The reaction. Explosive, laugh reacts, clapping emojis, and comment after comment that said what we were all thinking. Karen didn't just lose control, she earned it. Even the quiet ones started posting. People I'd never heard speak above a whisper were now sharing photos of Karen pacing front yards with her clipboard like it was a sheriff's badge. One guy posted a video, grainy but clear enough, of her literally measuring his lawn with a ruler. Another shared a screenshot of an email she'd sent. Subject line, "Urgent, trash can, placement emergency." Yeah, the group chat stopped feeling like Karen's personal courtroom, started feeling like a jury. And this time, she was the one on trial. Of course, she tried to respond. These are isolated incidents. I've always had the best interest of the community in mind. Let's not turn this into a witch hunt. Too late. The mood had shifted. People weren't afraid of her anymore. They were annoyed, embarrassed that they hadn't spoken up sooner. And now that the watermelon video had gone viral, it was like they'd finally been given permission to say what they'd been holding in for years. I didn't have to say a word. I just sat back and watched. Karen was unraveling, drowning in a sea of screenshots, memes, and sarcastic gifs. She kept trying to steer the narrative, kept clinging to her carefully crafted image. But the neighborhood had seen too much. They weren't buying it. They weren't siding with the HOA badge anymore. And as her influence slipped away, like lemonade pouring through a cracked patio table, Karen started to realize something. This wasn't about a watermelon. It was about every little thing she'd done, every lawn lecture, every citation, every smug threat, every passive-aggressive smile, every clipboard-backed crusade. Nobody was scared of her anymore. And then, a week later, the for sale sign appeared, right in the middle of her yard, like a white flag staked into the ground. But it didn't just show up. Karen supervised the installation, sunglasses on, arms crossed, standing there like she was unveiling a monument, like this was some proud farewell tour instead of what it really was, defeat. I watched from my porch, coffee in hand. Rodriguez next to me, arms folded, watching the scene unfold like it was live theater. We didn't say anything. We didn't have to. Because everyone in the neighborhood knew. Karen was finally leaving. "You think she's really leaving?" Rodriguez asked, not even trying to hide the grin stretching across his face. I took a sip of my coffee, watched Karen squint at a stack of moving boxes like they'd personally offended her. "I think she finally realized," I said. "She's not the queen of this cul-de-sac anymore." The house didn't sell right away. Word got around. Prospective buyers would pull up full of hope and open house excitement, until someone, totally not me, casually mentioned the video, or brought up the HOA horror stories, or both. Then they'd leave faster than Karen could say, neighborhood standards. But eventually, after a few price drops and one extremely awkward open house where someone showed up dressed as a watermelon by accident, the place finally sold. Moving trucks rolled in early one morning. Karen stood outside supervising, barking orders like she was still in charge, but the power, the tone, gone. Her kingdom looked tired. The boxwoods drooped. The tulips were gone. Even her clipboard, once practically glued to her hand, hadn't been seen in days. And for a moment, I thought, Maybe she'd leave quietly, just pack up and fade away. But of course not. Right before the truck pulled out, I got one last message. No words, just a photo, a watermelon, carved into it like a jack-o'-lantern, and not the happy kind. It had a wide, weird smile, the kind that makes you instinctively check your locks. I stared at it, let out a snort. Karen, always dramatic to the end, still trying to intimidate me, even as she packed her entire life into cardboard boxes and drove off into HOA exile. Rodriguez leaned over to look at my phone. Is that a threat? I shrugged. More like a farewell postcard from the land of petty. We watched as the truck pulled away. Karen's SUV followed behind it. No wave, no goodbye, just one sharp turn at the end of the block, and she was gone. The neighborhood felt different after that. Lighter, quieter. People started planting flowers without asking for permission. Halloween decorations stayed up a little longer. Trash cans lounged guilt-free by the curb. It was peaceful. But as I looked back down at that photo, the creepy little watermelon smile staring up at me, I couldn't help but grin, because Karen might have left the neighborhood. But something told me she wasn't quite done with me yet.